Shields up, Ironbreakers. Work on here coming at you with another video. Welcome back to Monster Hunter, and today I'm going to be sharing with you the build that I will be taking with me into Iceborne. I decided to call this one Codename Icebreaker for obvious reasons. You guys are like, well, what's with naming of builds? I thought you were kind of done with that, and I know, but this one is using an old weapon, pretty much one of the first Gunlances that I used when I started making builds around Gunlances. And according to Jinx and Tuna, still pretty much the best Gunlance that you can have for the Slam Burst playstyle because of the poison, because of the fact that it's got normal shelling level 4 and all of that stuff. It is the Royal Burst naturally, and it feels a little bit weird, like after all the hours that I've played of Monster Hunter World and all the things that I have farmed, like let's go back to the Royal Burst and let's make a build just completely all around that. You can't deny it feels weird, but you guys know I've done the Heartbreaker, the Iron Man, all of these different builds around the Royal Burst, and now the Icebreaker, which most likely will be the build that takes me into Iceborne. Now, mathematically speaking, if you guys go to Jinx and Tuna's channel, as I've mentioned in the past, you can get a build that is a little bit more optimized than this, actually significantly more optimized than this, but I wanted a build that suited more my playstyle and not necessarily behold me to constantly sharpening my weapon to get the sharp effect. So I went with something a little bit different. Naturally, it's going to be not as optimal, but at the same time, I still think it's pretty good. And here's the thing. Because I want to get better at the Slam Burst playstyle, I decided yesterday that I was going to go ahead and kill Arch-Tempered Nergigante with this build, which, looking back, was potentially not the best decision that I made because it took me quite a while. A lot longer than I would care to admit. But we did get him in the end without carding once, which was my objective. I wanted to kill him without carding. And we got him, but Jesus Christ, did it take forever to do. So, let's get started with the build, though. We got the Royal Burst in here, like I already talked about. It's got poison, it's got wet shelling level 4. In terms of augmentations, we're going for health regen and affinity increase to keep us in the game and also increase our affinity quite a bit. We are going to be looking at a very high affinity build here. And then, for the first piece of armor, we got Kaiser Crown Gamma. I love this helmet. I think this helmet is really good. It's one of the pieces that I usually go to a lot on a lot of my builds, even though some people might think, oh, it's not the best thing, it's whatever. But, you know, it comes with critical eye and it comes with 2 level 2 sockets. I like it quite a bit, and that is why this particular helmet is here. And we're going to socket it with 2 mighty jewels in there. We're going to go for maximum might. And I know that going into Iceborne, maximum might is going to change, which means I will have to change the build around a little bit. But I'm expecting to replace most of my armor shortly after I begin playing Iceborne, so I'm not overly concerned about that. New builds will arise at that point. This is just like the going in and, you know, taking out the first kind of monsters that are probably not going to prove too much of a challenge, get your first farming going, and then you start working out onto new sets and new skills and new things, right? But anyway, moving right along, we got the Nergigante Male Gamma, and I know Arch-Tempered Nergigante is a pain. Trust me, I know quite a bit because previously when I went against Arch-Tempered Elder Dragons, I was just like, dude, I'll just pick whatever weapon's the best to kill him. And now going after him and forcing myself to use the Gunlance, yeah, it was quite annoying. So anyway, Nergigante Male Gamma, we're going to put a critical jewel in there, a tenderizer jewel in there, and an expert jewel, okay? Like I said, we're going to go for a high affinity playstyle. Then we got Xeno'jiiva pieces. We got 3 Xeno'jiiva pieces. Naturally, I'm going to be going for Razor Sharp Spare Shot, which is going to allow us to do a couple of more slam bursts before we need to sharpen. Like I said, one of my objectives is to get as many slam bursts in as I possibly can before I need to sharpen. So keep that in mind. And some of you might be saying, well, with a set like this, you're not going to have Mind's Eye. Once you get to green sharpness, you're going to be bouncing on quite a number of monsters. But there are ways around that because you can go from your quick reload into a slam. So basically any move that takes you into quick reload, you can go into the slam, which does not require Mind's Eye to hit targets even if your sharpness is low. So, you know, you do have quite a lot of ways to go around the fact that sometimes you might be bouncing a little bit on monsters. But anyway, for the rest of the decorations, Xeno'jiiva Claws Gamma, we got 2 Flawless Jewels and an Expert Jewel. Xeno'jiiva Spine Gamma, we got a Magazine Jewel and an Expert Jewel. And then Xeno'jiiva Spurs Gamma, we got Flawless Jewel, 1 Expert Jewel, and 1 Iron Wall Jewel. We're going to round things out with an Artillery Charm level 3 to get all of the skills that we could possibly need for the Gunlance playstyle, for maximizing your shelling damage and all of that stuff. Now, this build gives you a little bit of wiggle room if you want to change some things around. One of the first things that I would change around, depending on the fights that you are doing, like if you need to do fights right now with this build, would be the flawless decorations. This is going to cut down on your damage significantly, but at the same time, it opens you up for quite a lot of things. So, for instance, say you need to fight Arch-Tempered Teostra. You'll want to replace the flawless jewels with stun resistance, because then you'll be immune to stuns, and the fight will be considerably easier. Say you want to fight Arch-Tempered Nergigante, like I'm fighting in the footage that you're watching. I don't have flawless jewels in there. I have vitality jewels in there to really maximize my survivability. Say you just need a monster that's maybe a little bit faster, like say an Odogoron or something, and you want to be able to get to him a little bit faster. Replace the flawless jewels with jumping jewels. So basically this is your flex skill, so to speak. You can like replace it with whatever you want. It's just flawless jewels are going to give you the most offensive options in this build. But like I said, if you want to get something else, you can get something else, no problem. Now, I understand that a lot of people are going to look at this build and be like, oh, this is not meta enough or whatever. It's like, look, each build is always going to be best used when applied to the player that it is using it, or when adapted to the monster that you are fighting against. That's pretty much always the way it's going to be. Most of the builds that I put out here for you guys, you're supposed to change them to suit your playstyle. This is like a template. And hopefully you can grab this build and either use it as is if you find that it is efficient enough, or you can change a couple of things around and suit it for your own playstyle. Anyway, when you look to the completed build here, we got level 7 critical eye, level 3 critical boost, level 3 peak performance, level 3 artillery, level 3 maximum might, level 1 weakness exploit, which you guys might be confused, but I'll explain that. Level 1 power prolonger comes from one of the Xenojiva pieces. We don't really need that. Special ammo boost, same thing. Actually, I think it comes from the same piece. It's both from gloves. I don't really need those skills, but, you know, they come anyway. And then finally, we got level 1 guard and level 3 razor sharp spare shot. So let me explain a couple of things here. So number one, why only one weakness exploit? That's because with the maximum might and a critical eye and the affinity augment that we have on the weapon and the base affinity of the weapon itself, you are going to be sitting at 85 affinity base. Regardless of where you hit, you got 85% affinity. That means that when you hit weak spots, you're going to have 100% because you have that extra 15% coming in from the weakness exploit. So that weakness exploit is just there to give you that last 15% whenever you're hitting weak spots, which a lot of the times you'll be hitting anyways, but just in case you don't hit a weak spot, you can still hurt them quite a bit because you're still going to have 85% crit, which is going to be good in my opinion. And then you might be wondering, what about that one guard point? Well, when Iceborne hits, you're going to have a guard point on, what's it called? The loading of the Wormstake Blast. So as such, I wanted to have at least 1 point in guard, which will hopefully allow me to counter a certain number of attacks. It's not going to allow you to counter everything, but it will allow you to counter quite a bit. And it's just an investment on one Iron Wall jewel, which most of us already got for free during a certain event somewhere. Or at least hopefully you'll have at least one Iron Wall jewel, which is potentially, looking at the jewels that I have in here, besides the magazine jewel, I think it might be the hardest jewel to get. Most of the other jewels I've gotten like hundreds of, so with the exception of attack, but we're not using attack jewels in here. And then naturally you have the Xenojiva's Divinity in there to make sure that we can shell a little bit more before we need to sharpen. But yeah, overall, I like this build a lot. This is what I would like to play come Iceborne. We shall see how this pans out. We shall see how, Wormstake Blast is going to feel when we actually use it, because, a lot of people complain during the closed betas and all that stuff. We'll see if the changes that they have made to it are going to be enough. But either way, this is the build. I'm probably going to let the rest of the hunt play out if you guys want to watch it. Let me know what you guys think about the build in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button. And if you didn't enjoy it, hit the dislike button, because feedback is extremely important. If you guys like my content, subscribe, hit the bell notification icon so that you might have a chance of actually getting notified, because who the hell knows what happens with that thing nowadays. Comments, feedback in the comment section down below. Stay strong, and may your shields never break.